Throughout the country, efforts are being made to erase, ban, or abolish the use of solitary confinement within the prison industrial complex. Men and women, even to this day, are being held in solitary confinement for years on end. Here to talk about one initiative that's taking place in the District of Columbia called Erase Solitary Confinement 2023 is Herbert Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Robinson, for joining me.
All right, I appreciate that. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
So I'm the co-facilitator of the Unlock the Box campaign here in Washington, D.C. I'm also a Georgetown Pivot Fellow, Cohort 6. Right now, I do advocacy work in the Washington, D.C. area, and one of our biggest focuses is ending solitary confinement here in D.C., which most of the city considers torture.
Mm-hmm. All right, and in full disclosure, I came out of cohort, I think it was 3, Pivot Cohort 3, right? Dave, Miss Moore, yeah, we came out to Cohort 3, right? Welcome, bro. Look, so for the benefit of our audience, you work with DC Justice Lab. And DC Justice Lab, explain what DC Justice Lab is.
DC Justice Lab, it's a policy and advocacy organization here in DC that's fighting to change some of the laws. They work with returning citizens and as well as college students and anyone throughout the Washington, D.C. area that has an idea, that has a suggestion about the policy or the laws and is willing to fight for that change.
Right.
They give you the tools and the resources through their library that they have right there at 12th and U Street. And they also have the assistance with their policy and training courses that they offer.
Right. And I'm familiar with DC Justice Lab. I'm in the DC Bay area. The studio where I'm at is in Baltimore, but I work for a group over there called Voices for a Second Chance. And I'm familiar with DC Justice. I done been in the space with the leadership and DC Justice Lab, like you say. I like their advocacy because one, they're aggressive in terms of identifying the issue, and more so aggressive in terms of impacting policy and changing policy. Which brings me to End Solitary Confinement 2023, the legislation that's being proposed, all right, to end solitary confinement. How is solitary confinement? What do you know about, or have you ever experienced solitary confinement first? And what is it in D.C.?
Yes, I've experienced solitary confinement. I actually had firsthand live experience with it. I've been in the SMOO program in the federal system. I've been in South 1 in DC jail. I've been in Northeast 1 in DC jail. Solitary confinement is 23 and 1. In DC jail with solitary confinement was 71 and 1.
Yeah, 24 and none.
Yeah, you came out for your hour rec every 3 days.
Yeah.
Because, they spoke about it being overcrowded or short of staff and things of that nature. So yeah, I got firsthand experience with solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is torture. It's been some torturous times spent in South 1. When you sitting on that tier listening to people yell and scream and, throw feces and things of that nature, man. Like that ain't no way a man should be. That ain't the way a human should be.
Right. And I think when I seen this report come out, End Solitary Confinement 2023, I was thinking about how this is the continuation of a national campaign and an international campaign to abolish solitary confinement, because the United Nations says torture and it shouldn't be used. And when people think about imprisonment, that in and of itself is a dehumanization in and of itself. But solitary confinement is a different animal altogether. I did 4.5 years in Supermax. I did countless years on segregation, which had the same characteristics as solitary confinement, in that, like you say, you you in a small confined area. You hear people that can't handle that kind of control and confinement. You hear them like just all night long screaming, yelling, banging. But then they started playing with their feces, and that became a whole nother animal. Did you, when y'all decided to take this up, where was you at in terms of like educating people on why this is necessary?
So right now, where we at, like, so what we did is we formed a working group, a centering directly impacted people working group, those with lived experiences, and I was one of those members of that group. And we used that group to do outreach. You know, we all filled out a survey that basically shared, you know, some of our experiences and the
Right,
things we went through while we were in solitary confinement. And we allowed the research team to go through it and analyze some things and help create what would help benefit us in those conditions and with that bill that we're putting forth to pass, as well as you know, doing outreach with the community, going into the community, speaking to the those with lived experience, speaking to some of their family members. Like we
right.
ran across some children of parents that had experienced solitary confinement, and just listening to them share their stories about how you know, their interactions with their mother for those years that she was incarcerated. And you know, most females spend a lot of their time in solitary
Yeah,
confinement,
yeah,
especially at DC jail and CTF and stuff like that.
yeah.
So um you know, having those experiences shared and you know, putting a platform out there, giving people a chance to share those experiences and letting everybody know that, you know, this is an issue. So the ACLU, they work with Lake Research Partners and did a poll, and this poll, you know, it showed that at one time when people didn't know nothing about solitary confinement or whatever, and it was just spoke to them about it, you know, being 22 to 24 hours a
Right,
day and, you know, locked in a cell. uh you know, you had 31 people who was supported, you know, solitary confinement.
right,
You had 62 opposed it. No, I'm sorry, I got my numbers wrong. So it was 32 supported it, 55 opposed, and 13 just didn't, you know where they led at either way.
right,
So now, after hearing about solitary confinement and, you know, a person being held under these conditions, and that these conditions doesn't do nothing to help with rehabilitation, that these conditions don't, you know, they actually hinder a person's mental state. You know, when you don't have nobody to talk to, when, you know, you don't got too many books to read and everything is at a minimum to you, then you start, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it.
right. And you know what? And in that regard, and not to cut you off, but in that regard, the traumatic part of that process, because I recall like when I went to Supermax, and they ain't had no library system. It's 12 of us on the pod, right? And they ain't had no library system. But more importantly, when you came in the Supermax, this is what you knew when you got there. The average person did 5 years. So when came in, the average amount of time that you was expected to do in Supermax was 5 years. So you went in there thinking like, I'm gonna be in here for 5 years. But then when you get there and realize what that here is, then the reality, you know, the rubber meet the road. But one thing when I got in there was there was no library, and everything was controlled in terms of like books and how many books you could get, of your family could send you any books, and like I didn't have no TV. I didn't want none of that. And man, you talking about somebody starving for something to read, man. I was reading like, I mean, I'm just reading anything that had words on it, right? But let me ask you this here. In terms of give us an outline on what are y'all proposing in the in solitary confinement 2023, if you can.
Well, our biggest goal is to try to get everyone 8 hours a day out of cell. Um, we feel as though 8 hours is a substantial enough time, and you know, it gives everyone a good amount of time to do any reading they need to do, any studying they need to do, any communication with their families, any hygiene they need to take care of, any actions with other humans. Solitary confinement hasn't proved anything. Only thing solitary confinement has proved is the torture of a human to
That's
put
right.
you in
Come
a
on.
depressed
Come on.
state.
Yeah, yeah.
And if this is what you're calling punishment, put me in a depressed state, a miserable state, then like that ain't right, man.
Yeah.
Like that's something that should be abolished, something that should be banned. So like again, so we're trying to get everybody 8 hours out their cell. We're trying to get those with mental health issues and that need assistance. You know, you trapping them in this cell and you putting them there. And if the problem isn't solved in 48 hours, then they need to be transferred out of your institution to a facility that can help them.
Right.
You feeding them medication 2 to 3 times a day and not assisting them, not giving them the treatment they need, not allow them to talk through their problems and giving them the assistance to learn how to work through their problems.
Right.
These are some of the things we're proposing, to try to give people that time out they cell, trying to get people transferred to hospitals if it's need be. We do understand that, when it comes to disciplinary actions and things like that, it needs to be a punishment, but you can take what you call privileges from a person.
Right.
If you don't want a person to have a certain amount of commissary or put them on commissary restriction,
Right.
it is ways where they can write
Right,
letters
right,
and
right, right.
they can do things.
Other than torture.
So
And like you said,
yeah,
if the intent is to torture, brutalize you, break you, then yeah, solitary confinement is doing all that. But if the intent is supposed to be to correct a behavior, then that's not doing that. And talk about the aspect of it as it relates to how they're going about putting. If you got this information, who do they primarily target for solitary confinement? Because my study come up with a certain class, a certain areas they be like navigating in and utilizing solitary confinement primarily for torturous reasons. Have you was able to discern is it certain individuals or certain class or certain type of people they use primary use for solitary or just across the board?
um, no, I can give you my understanding of it, but DC jail don't actually put out the data on that to be specific. From my experience, like a lot of who's there are those with mental issues, those with minor infractions, might have disrespected his CO, insolence to staff, didn't lock in on time, might have stole an extra tray, things like this, being disrespect. Like these are the people that's being targeted, or those that has a fear of being in population.
Right.
They're being put in solitary confinement because they have a fear of being put in population. Like they don't want to be around certain individuals. So now you punish them because they don't have the aggression
And
or
then, you know, and
like
I know like in when I was in Supermax, what they did, and you maybe can address this here, when I was in Supermax, what they did, they every year they brought you up for evaluation to determine if you should be released from Supermax. Because when you're in Supermax, uh, and like on solitary confinement, it's you don't have no, it's indefinite. It's not like you get 90 days for a shot, you get 30 days for a shot, 90 days for a ticket, 30 days for a ticket, 60 days for a ticket. In solitary confinement, I know in Supermax, it was they sent you there, it was indefinite. You there until they determine that they're gonna let you go. But every year they will bring you up for evaluation. Is that from your studies, was that the case with solitary confinement as you was exposed to it, or is that the case what's going on in the DC jail?
Nah, that's not the case in DC jail. So in DC jail, it's more so, they use it for punitive reasons for, people with disciplinary issues. But those that's been trapped there for the most part, mental health and maybe for whatever their crime was in the streets, like, nah, they ain't checking back for it. But like you spoke about earlier, the United Nations, and the Mandela rule, which
Right.
is part of that rule is Rule 44 that says being confined to a cell for 22 hours a day for 14 days or more is considered torture.
Yeah.
Being in them conditions for 14 days, the 15th day, the United Nations saying that's torture.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Supermax is in
Yeah.
violation of United Nations
Yeah,
policy.
yeah.
the
Yeah,
Mandela rule, they don't have no care and concern about standing on the Mandela rule. They doing what they want to do.
and see, they had I recall when I was in the pen back in the 80s when they first came up with admin seg, the concept of admin seg, which was another concept of leaving you locked down for indefinite. Prior to the cases that came out of that, they was using solitary confinement like this here towards women. They were dealing with sleep deprivation. They was taking them and putting them in cells, I think in Kentucky, and kept the lights on all day long, and they isolated and kept them in there like 24 and none. And
Yeah,
they
they do
filed,
that in DC
they had
jail and in
filed
the federal facility.
and had got that reversed, right? But which led to the admin seg and the Supreme Court weighing in on the admin seg saying that, you know, as a case called Soden versus O'Connor, where it said that at some point in time, they call it atypical and significant hardship, say at some point in time during the course of your incarceration, you expect to be in some type of arduous, treacherous, torturous environment. But in terms of where y'all at
That's supposed
in
to be
terms of
acceptable though.
going forward, in terms of like y'all walk us through y'all proposing the bill and y'all proposing to DC City Council. Is that where it's at?
Actually, right now we're waiting on a scheduled hearing.
Okay.
So a council member Nadeau, Brianna Nadeau, she actually partnered with us and she introduced the bill. And we've had several other council members sign on. I want to say it's like 8 all in together
Right.
so far that actually signed on to partner with it. And but we've sat down and spoke to every council member's their staff, and actually had a few council members we got to speak to one on one, like in person. But
Right.
for the most part, we spoke to staff members. But we did get to speak to all council members in entirety. So that was a great thing. And so far it seems everybody has a concern, and everybody sees solitary confinement as torture and knows that it does hinder those that's returning home from them conditions.
Right.
And that plays a part on society, and everybody wants to see and do what it takes to help better society, and also give those that's returning home and those that stuck under them conditions a better opportunity in life. So we all working together to try to figure some things out.
How like we know from what's going on in the country in general, but in the District of Columbia in particular, this hysteria of crime and mainly around our kids. To your knowledge, are they using solitary confinement to confine? Because they to confine the juveniles in isolation and solitary confinement type situation.
In DC right now, yes. To my understanding, they are, and it's they have their reasons. They they'll try to tell you because of overcrowdedness or lack
Yeah,
of staff, and but punishment is it. That's what it is. It's a punishment,
right. You don't. That don't
and
justify. Yeah,
sometimes
you don't justify. The Supreme Court already came out and say that you can't use the budget as a reason for continue to inflict inhumane conditions on people, and you can't use overcrowding as a pretext for like why you subject people to like inhumane conditions. That's just not a reality. That's something that you use and get away with. Talk about y'all interaction with people now that's like right now in the system. Do y'all have any connection with anybody in the system right now that's undergoing this process or giving y'all information to keep y'all like y'all abreast of what's going on that help with the advocacy?
like I said, we passed our surveys out, and a lot of our communication it went through that way. Far as DC jail was through the surveys, we don't actually have no one that we directing our contact or communication to inside of DC jail in that sense. We Our connection is more so once they get home, and through the surveys that we sent in, they all came back out like general surveys.
Right,
You filled that out anonymously. We didn't want to put nobody under no we both understand what goes on inside them
right,
conditions,
right,
what I'm saying?
right, right.
We didn't, so a lot of that's anonymous. So now I couldn't have that. But what I can say, like I do work outreach work with More Than Our Crimes, which is another org here in DC,
Right.
and they give a voice to the incarcerated individuals. They got a podcast and everything she shares and allow them to speak on. So that's where that kind of where that bridge goes, and that we get to speak to the brothers from that point of view and
Right.
allow them to share.
And talk about, you had said, spoke earlier about also the campaign to ban the box. What is that?
Unlock the box. That's the End Solitary Confinement.
Okay, that's what that is. What it's
Yeah,
called.
that's the national campaign. So Unlock the Box is a national campaign. That's the End Solitary Confinement.
Right.
So and Unlock the Box DC is our local branch of that organization. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know, because I'm good. I track Wild Solitary Watch, and Solitary Watch is is in the forefront in terms of like highlighting solitary confinement, highlighting where it's being utilized, and highlighting what advocacy is going on around the abolition of it. So that's why I say I know it's a national conversation. And
Yeah.
it's a national initiative.
Yeah, states like New Jersey, New York, Wyoming, it's states that's already passed legislation
Right.
that end solitary confinements. It's states like West Virginia, that's what they do. It's you're in there solitary confinement after 14 days, they have to release you, and then
Right.
if you commit another act, you can come back for 14
Right,
days. But
right. Right.
you can't be stuck there for 30 days, 90. You can't be stuck there for a year at a time.
I'm telling you,
It's states that has already moved in this direction, bro, that supports ending this solitary confinement, ending this torture of these humans.
and you know what? And her, you know what? It's nothing more traumatizing than that. We adjust to it in the system. Don't get me wrong. We, they you going on lock. We adjust to it because we don't have no way of changing it. We don't have no way of like reversing it. Right? That's why we make the adjustment. But in terms of like the psychological aspect of it, that's the most traumatic thing ever. Because I know when I knew when they told me I was going to Sumac, I had that in the back of my head that I'm gonna be there for 5 years. I didn't know what that was, that 5 year was. But when I got in there and realized like that if I don't stay focused on maintaining my sanity, I'm gonna be a babbling maniac when I come out of there. Because nothing was going on there to reinforce any type of social interaction or social skills. Everything was like magnified by being locked down, and all the information that came out of that experience and out of that space was distorted. Because I'm frustrated. So the least little thing, I'm off the chain. Like the least little thing, we could be talking about basketball, and you could say LeBron James is a punk, and for lack of a better word, and that become like contentious enough for me and you want to kill each other because of being in that environment. You know what I'm saying? Like it could be anything other than like we talking about bologna, and you saying ain't no such thing as chicken bologna. And for that, right after that, we ready to kill each other over that. But that come out of that environment. You know what I mean?
Now, and another scenario of that is how possessive we become, because you locked in them conditions. Everything is yours. You don't have to share nothing.
Nothing.
And then you get out here in society, and
you condition.
And a person might just pick up you might be in a work setting or something. They pick up the pen off your desk to write something down, but that's your pen to you. You're not used to nobody just picking up your pen.
Yeah.
And to someone else out here in society, bro, like they looking at it like that's a pen. Like you really going, like you feel some type of way because I touched your pen, like I needed to write something down. But they don't know the conditions you've been under and how they're meant, like it's mentally draining.
And that's that's the torture.
And like you say, we adapt at that time, right? But think about those that the premature deaths that's caused by those that return home from solitary confinement, and they've committed suicide. You gotta look at the brother Khalif Browder, bro. He was locked in solitary confinement like that and went home and committed suicide.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's so many others like that, brother, man, that put themselves in these positions, man. When they come home from their solitary confinement and don't have the resources or the help, but shouldn't have never been in them conditions in the first place, man. Like it's torture, man.
Yeah,
The premature deaths of those that come home, man, and has to face these consequences of society. And like you say, and the examples we just gave, how the arguments can just pop up out of nowhere, and then the
yeah,
spur of the moment, you don't know what it can lead to.
yeah. Because
But that's
a
because we
guy
lack the
told me that.
social and emotional intelligence to communicate, to be able to bond and and work together in society.
Yeah,
We don't have it because we've been trapped inside of boxes for so long.
God told me that when I went in school. He said, man, when you get, like when you leave out here, he had been there a couple of times. He said, man, when you leave, you ain't gonna be right. You ain't gonna be the same. And when I got out, I was in one prison, and the movement was more controlled, so it wasn't a lot of activity around you. And they moved me from there to another jail, and the other jail, the place they moved me, it was like everything was moving rapidly around you. Everybody knew me in the spot, and I'm standing still, and people that hadn't seen me for a long time, they coming up to me saying stuff, and I got a friend with me. I'm like, man, what the, he said, man, don't look, come on, let's go out in the yard, because I was like, really, I was stuck.
You was trying to get back to your unit.
Really, I
You
was stuck. I was stuck. I was
you
like,
ain't want to be around them people.
I was,
Like you ain't adjusted yet.
you got the last word on this. What do you want our audience to know going forward on what the DC Justice Lab is doing, and how y'all want us people to support this effort, this nationwide effort to ban the box?
For one, like the Unlock the Box campaign, it's the erase Bitly. You go on and to the erase hearing, ERASEHEARING, and it's a Bitly. If you go on and do it, bro, like you can sign up and get your council members, especially those from here in Washington D.C. You get your council members to help you with the hearing. Send them the email and tell them that you support End Solitary Confinement, and we need Council Member Pinto, who is the chair of the Judiciary Committee. We need her to schedule a hearing for us.
Okay.
We get a hearing scheduled, man, and get those that has the experience, the live experience, or family members with the experience, or can know the impact of it, especially those that might have worked over the jail, or have family members that's been over the jail, like,
Right.
and understand what's going on and the significance that solitary confinement plays in hindering us. We need their support. We need them to step up and share.
Okay. There you have it. Rattling the Bars, the real news. Thank you, Brother Herbert. And we want people to be mindful of this, that we're talking about humanity. We're not talking about people living comfortable, or if you have this notion that if you in prison that, that you should be subjected to certain things. No, you shouldn't be subjected to being tortured. You shouldn't be subjected to no inhumanity. You shouldn't be subjected to a system where they put you in a box and leave you there 24 and none, or let you out every 3 days for rec. No, you shouldn't be in that. That's not what penology is about. It says that when the crime, it's a crime and punishment. The crime that you committed, the punishment is the sentence. The punishment is not to be sent into a prison and tortured. Thank you, Brother Herbert. And we ask you to continue to support Rattling the Bars and the Real News. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you all for having me on. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work. So please, tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.